Sairam, Namaste, and hello to everybody. Welcome to our next session in the series of Practical Spirituality. Today, we will look into the core human values as a means of self discovery. So, as our practice, let us start our session with our prayer. Please join me. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Welcome once again. It's a it's really a pleasure for me to discuss something and share my thoughts on the very vital aspect of human values. I'm sure this word human values or values per se is very common and has been known to all of us for a long time. This human value, which I'm going to discuss today, I would like to give you a kind of backdrop of that. I look at it as a journey of our life. And if humanity had to explore it on its own, I don't know how many lifetimes we would have taken to really understand our inner constituent and to figure it out as to how do we utilize it for our benefit. So this journey is given to us, and as I have understood, I'm going to share with you today. So let us start this whole discussion with a basic understanding of what is human values, or what do we call it as human values. So as we have seen, human values, as we say, human beings have certain core elements, and I've tried to give it a definition to it. It is described as a core aspirations of humans, which are eternal and universal in nature and do not change with time, place, and circumstances. In simple words, in simple meaning, it is that whatever we are made up of, what is our true nature, is same in all the human beings, irrespective of which country, culture, or place we come from. For example, a mother's love is same in any continent, in any part of the world. The desire for respect, the desire for love, compassion is same across the board. So these are the values which are really innate in us. They are core and they are universal in nature. And hence we call these as human values. You may wonder, like, why human values? Why not just values? Unfortunately, we don't have to remind dogs or donkeys or any animal what are their values because they stick to it. And as we have looked at it in the past, that humans have something called an intellect, the buddhi, which differentiates us from the other species, animals, demons, and everybody. But the beauty or the challenge of this buddhi is that it has to be given a direction, it has to be tamed and guided properly. Otherwise, we'll be actually wasting this life called humanness. So this human value which we are looking at is because we have the ability to get digressed. We have this with nature, that we may or may not stick to our own aspirations and our understanding of our core beliefs. Hence, the need to revive this concept to make us understand that what is that in essence which makes us a human being. And those finer attributes which really create the differentiation of a human from other species is ascribed as human values. So, from this definition, now let us explore what is human value. Now, the second part is what is a human? So, when you look at the first quest which anybody has is who am I? Where do I come from? What is me? And this is exactly what we are trying to teach a child, and it try to teach anybody, because we need to understand first who is inquiring, who is looking for things, what, who am I? This is the concept which needs to be understood. And that is why I call this whole journey into self discovery. So, this who am I is a concept which is an eternal question, and I would say is the first and the last question anybody would ask. Because this is a real question which enlightens us and which takes us through a journey and actually gets to the destination. So, this human I, who am I, if we look at it from our human perspective, from a very basic thought, we understand it as, you know, the age. So, at the small age, we call, okay, he's a child. That could be me. So, I teach a child of 5, 3, 4, 5 years old as, hey, you are a baby. And we like to see them in that age bracket. And when he grows into a teenage, then adult, then old people, so we define ourselves as through the ages. That's why I call it age. So I discover first identity I have is because of my age. I am small, I am big, I am young, I am old. These are all age based things. And then the second identification which we create is through the roles that we play. I'm a son, or I'm a father, I'm a wife, I'm a husband, I'm a friend, I'm a colleague, I'm an employer, I'm an employee. So that is how we discover that who am I? So I see that I have got these two areas through which I am now defining myself. So let us go with that. And this definition, the moment I understand it, I am a child or I'm a youth, then that automatically takes me to an idea to understand what are my rules and responsibilities, what are my rights and responsibilities, what are my role to play. So the moment I start looking deeper into each role and the age specific requirement, it starts also giving me a clarity about who am I and how am I supposed to conduct in life, period. So if I am a mother, if I'm a father, what are the responsibilities and the strengths which I gain just by being in that role? If you are a teacher and you are a father, you are a teacher and a mother, so you have two roles to play. So that is how you will start looking at the age specific and the role specific. Now we start seeing a diversification, a multitude of personalities, and we require all of them, we identify all of them as me. Who is that? That is me as a teacher. That is me as a son, me as a father. So, this me now, this is the first identification of who am I. I'm not even getting into the spiritual realm. So, let us see how this journey will give us fulfillment from that perspective. And that is exactly what we try to teach our children to when they are in the small nurseries and kindergartens. We like them to know that they are children. They are human beings, a human child. Hence, the way they should conduct should be appropriate and in alignment with being a human child. When they grow into teenagers, we want to give them more responsibility as a human being. So they understand then that they have a human mind, not an animal mind, because we have already taught them who they are. So this is an understanding which is very critical for us to know. Acknowledging, recognizing, and being aware of one's identity is truth. And that is how we identify the first human value as truth. Because there is nothing we can do unless I know who am I. Imagine start working without knowing why are you working, who are you working for, and who is working. Your actions won't have that kind of clarity, that kind of conviction, unless the truth is clear. So acknowledging, recognizing, and being aware of one's identity and the roles you play is truth. So the first and the foremost thing for anybody, for that matter, in any scenario, identify the truth of the situation, of the person, of the being. So once we have understood truth, then comes the next beautiful thing of how to act on the truth. Now, there are two types of truth. Let us look at that. And it's important to understand before we conduct, we have to get a clarity about this truth. So, one, we have seen the truth as an age specific and which defined, not is that a truth which gets defined because of age, the self identity, and the roles we play. So, that is how we define me, I, right? That is me. But now the truth has got two shades. One is relative truth, and another we call as an absolute truth. Relative truth is called in Sanskrit as sapekshik satya. Sapekshik in literal translation is which has some kind of proof, which is dependent on something. It is dependency based. See, if I say I'm a son, it is dependent on somebody being my father. If I say I'm a boy, it is dependent on somebody being not a boy. If I say I'm a youth, it is dependent on whom am I comparing with. So the relative truth is always dependent on something else to exist. So if I say I'm old, it is in relation to somebody that I'm old. Imagine if everybody was old, then there is nobody old. They're all same. Just because there is somebody as a baby in front of you, though you say I am old. So in front of a 3-month old baby, even a 20-year-old will be like an old man. I'm much older than a baby. But a 20-year-old is a baby or a younger in front of a 40-year. So sapekshik satya, the relative truth, actually indicates. That's why I like to use Sanskrit words as far as possible, because they give you an insight into understanding as to how the concepts have come up. So sapekshik truth, the relative truth, is always dependent. That's why it's called relative to time, space, and circumstances. It is dependent on something, and hence it is relative. Absolute truth, on the other hand, has got no dependency. It is absolute. Now, in my being, as an old man, as a young man, and my being as a son, as a father or a brother, is relative, but me is absolute. That I exist is absolute. I was as a child, I was as a young man, I was as a brother, as a friend, as a teacher. So I have played different role. This I is the stable, the constant. Hence, that becomes an absolute truth. So that is why if you look at the definition of values, we say it's unchanging, because the values actually relate to the absolute truth. So if we understand that when we talk about human values, we are identifying values with absolute truth, not with the relative truth. But to understand that, we have to look at values with and in relationship with the relative truth. So sapekshik satya, the dependent truth, actually helps us to understand what is the absolute truth and how should we go about it. So the attribute of values which we defined, and we said it is eternal, it is universal, it is innate, it does not change with time, place, and circumstances, that actually defines the absolute truth. But since we cannot understand easily that, the path to the absolute truth is through relative truth. It is sapekshik truth, satya. Because the moment, that's how there's a philosophy of negation, neti, neti, they say. Are you this? No, I'm not this. Are you that? I'm not that. And there's also a Vedantic, the process which teaches you, are you this nose? No, I'm not. This is my nose. This is my hand. So that means you and your nose is different. This is my shirt. That means the shirt is different from me. So they teach you a Natic style in Na. That means you negate what you are not with an expectation that at the end you will be left with what you are. So sapekshik truth is that format which takes you ultimately, when you start understanding that the thing which I was identifying myself to are not me, but they are attached to me. Then the mind helps you to go through the journey to start identifying what is that me, and that is the absolute truth. So when I say I am a child, I am a man, I'm a son, I'm a brother. So these all are attached to I. Who is this I? So this kind of self inquiry starts. So the truth is that beauty. Once we understand this concept, this process of thinking, then will help us to take it further. That is why it was very beautifully said that everything is dependent on truth. Truth is the foundation of life. And that is why it is foundation, because without truth, whatever you do will not make much sense. You will get tired of working. Have you ever felt like, oh my God, I worked so hard, I'm tired? It is because we work without focusing on the truth. If truth remains the focal point, then the tiredness won't come in that manner. So, looking at truth, there are two aspects, relative and absolute, sapekshik and param. The absolute truth, unchanging. Relative, which is sapekshik, means dependent, dependent on circumstances, place, and people. To know absolute, we have to go through sapekshik truth. That is the key. So please remember that. So in relative truth, if you see, that is which modifies and reinvents with circumstances and situations, and which changes with time, place, and circumstances. Today I may be treated as a boy, tomorrow as a man, then as an old man. So they have a multiple identities, and that is the beauty of relative truth. So when I say I'm I'm this, I'm that, I'm so many roles, that multiple identity becomes relative truth. Whereas absolute truth, that which never changes with time, circumstances. And it has a different name too, and that is called Rutam. In the Vedic terminology, that's why I always tell you all that I would rather use not an Eastern or Western thought process, because today I find our Vedic thought much more prominent and practicing even in the Western side of the world. So I feel it is unfair to say Eastern thought and Western thought. It will confuse people, because in East you find more Western mind, and in West you find more Eastern mind today. They have respected the whole upbringing differently. So I would rather call it a Vedic thought. Whosoever adopts it is fantastic. It is non-religious. It was before even human could even conceptualize the so-called religions. So I would rather call that as a Vedic thought. So in the Vedic terminology, that absolute truth is called Ritam. So there is one word called Satyam, which is the truth in that relative absolute, and the absolute truth per se is called Ritam. And this is the Brahman, that absolute Aham Tattva, Mahat Tattva that we have spoken in our earlier sessions. So if anybody interested, they can go back to those sessions and they can, pick up those threads. So that is called absolute truth. So now, keeping this truth in mind, then our next ability comes, the ability to conduct in alignment with the truth. Now, see, I know that I am a man. I know that I am a human being. I know I am a father, brother, son, sister, mother, whatever. Now, when I have that knowledge, the awareness of my truth, a relative truth, then when I conduct in the alignment of truth, that is referred to as righteousness or right conduct. And that is the second human value. So that is how we get the second beautiful value, which is righteousness. So now, if you understand it this way, then you will look there. Then you will also see a beautiful relationship, that righteousness is dependent on truth. So if you work without the truth, if you act without the truth, it will be like a blind man getting into a bus without directions. So where are you working for? Then you will waste, you have a tendency of wasting of energy, resources, and feeling frustrated at times that, hi, I am working so well. I'm doing my best. I'm giving out my best. I'm working as per the norms, but still I'm not finding fulfillment. How many of you experience that kind of depression or frustrated feeling? That I've given my best in life, I have do my exit, but still I don't feel the contentment, the fulfillment. Why? It is because our before we act or while we are acting, we have forgotten our truth of who is working and why are you working. That truth, if it becomes a guiding factor, then fulfillment is assured. So then only the action becomes right action. Otherwise, your right action itself can be misinterpreted and it will confuse you. Then you will start wondering that, should I act right? Is righteousness has any value in life today? All these debates which come to question righteousness is because righteousness, the right actions, are not in alignment with the truth. The act can be right, but when that act is not based and in alignment with truth, that act also loses its purity and its completeness. And sometimes, mind you, sometimes even a right act can become wrong if not in alignment with truth. For a right action to be right, it must be in the right time, right place, and right circumstances. If you drink milk in a bar and expect people to treat you properly, or think that, oh, you are not a drunkard, that is foolishness. You may justify to the whole world that I was drinking milk in a bar. It doesn't sound right. You may be doing the right thing by drinking milk, maybe at a right time, but not in the right place. You may be practicing for a soccer match, but you can't do it in your bedroom. Right place, right thing, but not right time, and sorry, not right place. So all three things must be right, and all the three things to be aligned, it must be related to the truth. And that is why it is very important to understand the sequence. The truth is the basis, is the foundation, is the source of righteousness. And righteousness to be good, righteousness to be right, right conduct to be appropriate, it must have the basis in values. So that is what we are looking at. So righteousness is your next value. Now, in a translative manner, we always call righteousness as dharma. Okay, we say dharma, But please do not take dharma in a literal sense of religion. Dharma is all the different roles and all the different labels that we get through age and through our performances. Like I was telling you, he's an elderly man. So, what is his duty? That is called dharma. If he's a teacher, then what is his duty? That is called his dharma. So, dharma is code. Rather than saying anything else, I would say it is a right conduct code. It's a code of conduct. And that is why it's a better translation as righteousness or right action. So dharma, in one element of dharma, which is like when as a human being my role towards myself, fulfillment when I act, which I call meditation, prayer, contemplation, all that element which I do, or even if I connect myself with the higher power of supreme so-called God, then that portion of dharma is called agama. And that agama is a term which literally got translated as religion. So dharma's branch as an agama is religion. Dharma is not religion. So agama is what comes forth. It's an explorative format. So in which when you are exploring yourself, your contact with God, your inner self, your supreme consciousness and relationship, that portion of study is called agama shastra. So that is a different, and that portion I feel can be correlated and labeled as religion. So when we talk about dharma, it's a huge umbrella. It encompasses, it encapsulates even religion, but it is much beyond religion. So Agama Shastra is part of dharma, and dharma which comes from truth, satyam, ritam. So that is how the sequence we must understand. And if we can really digest this and comprehend this, it will be easy for us to look forward in life to understand how we have to conduct. So that's why I'm just stressing this few minutes just to highlight that please do not take dharma in that narrow sense of agama or a religion. Dharma is much broader concept which includes the whole persona of a being. Even the truth, which I said absolute as well as relative, both have dharmas. So the moment I talk about the relative truth, my dharma becomes the roles I play, the age I am in. But the moment I go into absolute dharma, then my role is swadharma. That what is the dharma of my spirit? And that's why in our modern terminology, we always say that we are body, mind, and spirit, right? What is that spirit? What is the role of that spirit? Hence, you need activities and things for the spirit. And that is the dharma of spirit. So some people say, okay, I will meditate, I will do bhajans, I will get involved with service projects. Now we are doing dharma of the spirit, even though it is intertwined and overlapping with dharma of body also. But now you are catering to the third aspect of yours, which is the prime aspect, that is you per se. So if I want to grow, I cannot overlook any one of these three: body, mind, and spirit. I must take care of all. Hence, that is why I keep recommending silent sitting, quietness, whether you call it Jyoti meditation or silent sitting or whatever, that calming down of yourself, ourselves, is the most important aspect of Swadharma. Swa means me, Dharma. What is my Dharma? And that Swadharma is that attribute of self, truly speaking. So as we grow, you will start seeing that the Dharma concept actually pervades the whole thing: age specific, role specific, and your spirit specific or your being specific. So that is where comes the role of Dharma. Now, in this, I want to share with you now what happens in today's time, especially. Not only today's, every time. See, now since we are playing multiple roles and we have to go through dharma. See, for example, say, for example, I am a teacher and I am a father. Okay. Now, I know my role as a teacher between the official timings is to take care of my children of my school and my class. So I am busy teaching them, I take care of them, I am fully responsible for all my 30 children under my care. And I get a call that my son, for example, is in a serious problem at home and there is nobody to take care of him there. I must rush. Now, this in the present day context, the dilemmas are very typical. Why am I calling it typical? Because the real dilemma is not between right and wrong, it is between two rights. I'm also a father, I'm also a teacher. My baby child at home needs me. So my dharma of a father says, rush. I might have provided somebody there because I came to school, I must have provided somebody to be looking after my child and taking care of things. But probably something has gone wrong and my child needs me now. And here I'm in the class of 30. I can't leave 30 for the sake of one. So these kind of dilemmas, when you look at it, then we realize that this is the dilemma which is not between right and wrong, it is between right and right. Now, how should I do? How should I take care of both? Should I leave my class and run? Or should I say, no, I'm a teacher right now and I should take care of these 30 and not go? So, such dilemmas are called dharam sankat in Sanskrit. Sankat is obstacles, obstructions, problems, and dharam is again dharam. So why do we call it dharam sankat? We English it is dilemmas, but dharam sankat is called because it is a clash of two dharmas. In the relative concept of dharmas, I have got multiple hats, and now my two hats are conflicting with each other. Make it more complicated. It could be three hats, four hats. And then how do you handle that? And that is where we reach a situation when you realize that, my God, both are important. My role as a father is important, my role as a teacher is important. On one hand, it's my son, on another, I have got sons which are under my care. So which one should I take? Which one should I leave? And this kind of dilemmas is called dharam sankat because there's a conflict of two dharmas which are equally important. Now, I can't give you the answer for it because it is very personal. It all depends on the amount of faith and conviction we have in our own value systems. That value system, when you have that firm faith of your truth, that truth will give you the strength to lead the way. And whatever you decide is right for you at that moment. And that is the catch. So I can resolve resolution of dilemmas. I can just share with you certain guidelines or certain kind of template. If you use it, it will help to resolve. But the answer is up to us. I cannot say leave the children, call a teacher and put them there and run for your son. Or it could be I call my spouse and say, hey, can you run? The child needs. I think the maid or caretaker has messed up. Or I can call a neighbor and ask them to take care. I don't know which one strategy would work better. But all of that depends on my conviction of my own truth, my faith in myself, faith in my truth, that which is important and how do I handle it? Or do I get nervous and start throwing up? So I cannot give the answer for anybody. My answer is mine. Your answer will be yours. And incidentally, all are correct depending on where we stand. So I'm sharing with you a template, a formula which you can use to help resolve this dharam sankat or dilemmas. The first point for that is revisit the truth. So when I say revisit the truth, again go back to understand what is my present dominant truth. Is it teacher? As I said to you, is it 100 children under my care or 30 children under my care with one child at home? I don't know. I cannot decide. But that is revisit the truth. Go and identify who is working, who is panicking, who has to go and save, who has to work in what manner, my age, my roles, which are more dominant. So revisit the truth again. Go back into before you act, know the truth. Who is acting? Because you can justify to the world in any truth you choose. Even if you stay or you go is same. But your heart will tell you tomorrow whether you were right or not. And that will happen only when you are convinced with the truth through which or because of which you acted. Hence, revisit the truth. That is the first lesson we learn of resolution. Second is priority for the larger good. My act, whichever I choose under any circumstances, must be for a larger good. If I have to choose, like they say, no, you can sacrifice an individual for the sake of family, a family for the sake of society, a society for the sake of nation, and a nation for the sake of world. That is also a very beautiful dictum. And that shows that how priorities must be given in life. The whole Mahabharata happened because they forgot these cardinal truths, the principles of life, because they kept their prestige of my pledge, my promise, my word larger than the benefit and the goodness of the world. Hence, the biggest war of century happened. So, second criteria for resolution is priority for the larger good. And the third is others first. So when there is a dilemma, see who is benefited and who is the person who is involved. If it is between me and somebody else, then the somebody else gets the priority. That is the dictum. So now you can use these three, one of them, combination of these three, that's up to us. So we found that these three can help us to resolve those dharmic conflicts. And I'm calling them dharmic sankat, dharam sankat, dharmic conflicts, because they are situations wherein both the options are true, both the options are correct. It is the way we look at them, the way we approach makes it anything this way or that way. Okay, so this is a little deviation, but I thought it will be interesting for us to understand the dharma concept, because from truth we come to dharma, and in dharma we saw different roles based on age and positions, and then the conflict because of those are to be resolved in this manner. Okay, here also very important element in all of this, the I'm just putting this slide just for a reminder actually, because I have dealt with this before. The process of inquiry should always have these three steps: pause, think, and act. So anytime you do these things, one must learn to pause. Before you think, you must pause. So please don't confuse pause and thinking is one. Don't start thinking before you have paused. And unless you have paused, you cannot think. So mind that and keep it like I put a ribbon around your finger just to remind you that let me not jump into thinking process unless I have learned to pause. The pause is a very, very critical aspect of our life. So once we learn to pause, the mind gets calmer. You become a third party to the whole approach, and then you are in a better position to approach and process thinking. And then once your clarity of thought comes, action will be easy. So use these formulas. I'm just trying to share with you a little bit of the templates that has helped me in my life. So I hope this will help you too. So from there now, we jump into the next level. What happens is, how do we know? A very big question comes, how do we know that my acts, my actions are right? As I said to you, dharma is very relative. So I cannot justify, I cannot even judge you or test you that you are right or wrong, because it is very personal. But then to me, if I have to understand myself, if I have to analyze that, hey, did I do right? Did I conduct in the appropriate manner? How do I know? And the answer for that is right in front of us. The inner contentment and calm, accompanied with fearlessness, is the key. If you can experience this emotion, so to say, the inner contentment and calm, accompanied with fearlessness, and that is called peace. And that is our third value. So, truth inspires action, which becomes right conduct or righteousness. And to test whether the right action is right, whether my acts are according to the truth, whether my act is as per the jurisdiction of righteousness, that is tested through peace. And the peace is the inner contentment and calm, accompanied with fearlessness. Understand that. So you cannot pretend to be calm. You cannot pretend to be content, because you will know if you have fearlessness. Some people find arrogance as fearlessness, then they can't be calm and content. So these three words are very important: content, calm, and fearless. So inner contentment and calm accompanied with fearlessness, and that is my way of saying peace. So that is a test which tells you, it's like thermometer which tells me that yes, my actions are good. Because whatever the world may say, when I come back home at night, I will sleep like a baby. I'm peaceful, and that is the test that yes, my actions were appropriate and right. So that becomes the third aspect. Now, peace, or peaceful to be contented state. Now, the problem is the peace always does not remain that way. And why it doesn't remain is because of these two reasons. See, peaceful, contented state to be permanent, one must have an action to be righteous always. If your actions are not in the righteous manner, you will find your peace getting disturbed. You will have restlessness. And the inquiry into the truth must be consistent. Because I told you, it's a combination. The righteousness is dependent on truth. And each action must be evaluated through truth. And the more we are in constant inquiry, the most we are in self introspective mode, our actions would remain righteousness. And the more we are in righteous alignment, we will experience peace. So, for peace, these two are must. One, action must be righteous, and our inquiry must be consistent and constantly on. So, when you do these two things, we experience peace. But the problem is, it does not remain. That is why we need more motivation, right? Every 3 months we find, hey, can I get a motivational session to pump us up? Because each time I'm following something and then it dips. Then my whole motivation drops and I want another motivation session. In the organizations, we hear it a lot. When we come back from a training session, that first week will be like everybody pumped up, everybody working properly, no need for attendance, everybody's doing their job best. And after the month crosses, again it starts dipping. And after 3 months, you say, oh my God, we need another motivational session to pump you up. So imagine this whole up and down is why. Why can't we conduct at an high pace all the time so that we can keep experiencing peace all the time? And this happens because of one basic reason, and that is lack of something. For peace to be permanent and for the righteous act through the process of self inquiry to be consistent. So both the key is love. And that's how we get our fourth value. So if you are finding that you need motivation after every second week or third week or 1 month or whatever time, and you find that I'm working perfectly, then tomorrow I am fluctuating. Any such fluctuations is basically because our love quotient is fluctuating. If the love quotient remains high, and that is the main driving force, then the peace will never be shaken. Then you are constantly, that itself will prove, because love quotient will make you walk the path of righteousness. Love quotient will highlight the truth very easily. So the inquiry becomes easy because of love, because ultimately what you're inquiring is love. So actually, if I look at it from a spiritual perspective, love is the innate material which creates truth. But to know love, you have to go through this process. So unless I go through the process of truth, righteousness, peace, and then bring in love, I won't realize that love is actually the foundation of truth also. It is the love which is created the whole concept of truth. It is the love which is the cause of this creation. It is the love which actually manufactured everything. But that craziness, that the weirdness of the whole concept is that we won't experience that love unless we have taken the steps to come back. So that is the beauty of this love, that it is the starting and it is the end. And now comes the next part. Now imagine we got these four values, right? We got Satya, that is truth. We know that when Satya is actioned, the moment Satya becomes action, that is Dharma, which is righteousness or right conduct. The proof of the pudding is in eating. So the proof of that I am in the right format of living is the experiencing of peace. And to maintain all the peace, you must experience love and do the whole process with love. So that is how we have these four values. Now imagine if a person who is constantly aware of his truth, who is conducting as per the truth, keeping in mind the time, place, and circumstances, the boundaries of these three, who is experiencing peace because of this action, and who is constantly exuberating, expressing his love for the whole process and the source. Such state of existence is the next stage. Okay, just a small slide. Love is that the state of living when we are consistently aware and conscious of truth and conduct accordingly in righteous manner, validating through the fearless, peaceful existence of living and permanently infused with love. And that state is called non-violence. So non-violence is not a state wherein you don't abuse somebody or you don't physically hurt somebody. It is actually the state of that supreme lifestyle in which you conduct in the best possible manner. You are constantly at a peace of, focused on the truth. In an action wise, if I look at it in a simple terminology, if I had to teach a child non-violence, I teach them do not waste food, do not waste time, do not waste money, and do not waste resources. That is the best definition of non-violence. Because if you waste time, for example, do you feel hurt that, oh my God, I wasted a minute? If you waste food, do you feel the pinch that, oh my God, I wasted some food? Somebody would have got, a meal because of this. See, if that small deviation from the actual way of living, righteousness, creates a hurt, creates a kind of pain in the heart, that is violence. So violence is not slapping somebody or hitting somebody. That is a too gross an expression of violence, which gets manifested outside. But the true violence happens in our own heart, in our own mind, when we entertain a negative or a bad thought. That is the first violence which he has allowed. If I waste time, money, resources, then it should hurt. That deviation is the first violence. So when we say Gautam Buddha epitomized non-violence lifestyle, can you imagine the perfection of Buddha? That is why Gautama became the Buddha, the enlightened one, because then he lived with that perfection in which he thought exactly what is needed, he said exactly what is required, not less, not more. He used the tone exactly the way it was required. He slept when it was needed. Can you imagine the perfection of life in which you don't even breathe more than required, you don't talk more than required, you don't walk more than required, you always conduct that perfect state of being is non-violence. So violence should happen, violence actually happens in our own self first. And what we see outside through anger, to fight, to abuses, those are only a manifestation, a physical manifestation of internal violence. Hence, the non-violence is explained as the state of living where we are constantly aware and conscious of truth and conduct accordingly in the righteous manner, validating through the fearless, peaceful existence of living and permanently infused with love. And to practice that, very simple, do not waste food, money, time, and energy. Go for it. Very simple to practice, even for a kindergarten up to old age. And the moment we start aligning ourselves with the whole concept, we are epitomizing non-violence. And that is the fifth attribute of values. So these are the five core human values, which are absolute in nature and they can't be defined. When I say they can't be defined, take truth. Can you define truth? We cannot. None of these truth, righteousness, dharma, shanti, prema, you cannot define them. You can explain them, you can describe them, you can exemplify them, but you cannot define them. Why? Because they are the attribute of absolute truth, that is Ritam. And absolute truth cannot be defined. How can you define an undefinable? And that is why it's called absolute. How can I define God? But I can give the attributes of God, I can describe Him, because that is depending on my abilities, I can talk. But can I really define God? I cannot. So these words are actually attribute of the absolute truth, which is Param Satya, and that is Ritam. Hence, they are core. Hence, they are eternal, absolute, innate, and intrinsic. So that is how we arrive at these five values. That is why we are given these four, and then we added another five just to complete a lifestyle so that we can learn how to implement it. And that is the beauty of self journey. And this one, when we take it forward, we realize that this whole inward journey, these five values, are nothing but a manifestation of myself, I-ness, and its means of self-realization and human fulfillment. So that is in a brief. I'm sure I hope I am on time. Yes. In a brief, I have tried to share with you the whole journey of values. And if you have any questions, I'm welcome. Is Swadharma of calming down one's mind same for each and every one? Sunil from Bhubaneswar. Calming of one's mind, Sunil, is a technique, a process. You can call it one of the sadhanas, the process of practices we undertake. And yes, of course, everybody has to do this practice. But I would not call that as a swadharma. Swadharma is the dharma of soul, and that is actually oneness. Realization, self-realization is swadharma. So a duty of spirit is to know its destination. So swadharma, if you really look at from an absolute understanding, then swadharma of an atma is self-realization. So calming down or meditation, these are all techniques we do, but don't confuse them with kind of swadharma that way. These are all techniques. So I can few minutes. I would like to keep it open for anybody. Anybody has a question, can always write down or ping me, send it to me. I'll be happy to discuss it here. But very important, a couple of things are very key here, as I was mentioning, the dilemmas which we talked about, dilemmas of dharmic dilemmas, especially when you have the conflict between two equals, right versus right, which I was talking to you about. And that is the key. There it requires slight more of contemplation and introspection, because when we go into that understanding and comparison of what is important for me, and that is where we have these challenges. When I have two roles to play at the same time, or three roles to play sometimes, I could be a spouse, I could be a parent, and I could be a professional, I could be a friend. So there are so many roles we play, and when all the roles look equal, and that is where we come into a conflicting zone and call it dharmic sankat. And that is why I shared those 3 steps, which would probably help us in looking at things in a different manner. Thank you, Neeta, for your compliment. So, can being aware of not wasting time, resources cover all the 5 values for children? In a way, yes. If you start practicing, okay, let me tell you one interesting aspect of values here. You can pick up any value of your choice. Forget the sequence. The sequence is important as an adult thought process, because that's how you can channelize your energy. But the good part of value is they're all interconnected, interdependent, because they all stem from the same core value of love, which is purely manifested as truth first. So you can pick up any value, and if you start practicing it, you will find that all the other values just start manifesting automatically. And this will look theoretical unless and until we start practicing it. You practice any value for that matter. Don't worry about the sequence, don't worry about the concept. If you feel, like I feel like sharing, start sharing. You will see that you will find righteousness, truth, everything manifesting automatically in the process. If you feel compassion, that I want to be compassionate towards all beings, start with compassion. Doesn't matter. It'll take you everywhere. Our masters teach us very beautifully. He said, people who demarcate karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga separately, they don't know any yoga, because they are all interrelated. You start anywhere, you will find everything. Meera was just a devotee. She was bhakti yoga. But look at her talks. When she spoke, even the scholars would just surprised at her wisdom. What was her qualification? Devotion to the master. So bhakti led her to jnana. So it is very immature-ish, or it is very ignorant to say these three are like demarcated. Which path am I following? It is like which way you want to start. One day we asked a question, like why so many gods? And the master gave a very beautiful answer. He said, you have gone to this fair where you have a lot of balloons kept on the wall, and they give you a gun to shoot, right? And they say shoot any. If you hit a balloon, you'll get a gift. Now, because there are some 30-40 balloons stuck there, you shoot, something will get hit and you get a gift. Imagine if there was only one balloon there. What is the probability that you will hit that balloon? Very less. So he says, similarly, we have given you 100 gods. You choose anything, you name anyone, you will reach the same God. But if I give you only one name and that doesn't resonate with you, then you will lose the fun. So having million God is not a disadvantage, it is an advantage. Whatever comes to my tongue, I will say, and I will reach the same God. So similarly, values, whichever value you pick up, it will lead to everything else. So don't worry about it. So just go with that flow, start practicing. The practice is the most important thing. Jump into it. But as an adult, let us rethink, realign to keep ourselves aware of truth, keep ourselves in alignment with the truth. The more and more we are convinced of our truth, the life would start falling in alignment. But the process will help us to understand, if I am depressed, that means my righteousness has gone off. And if my righteousness has deviated, that means my truth has deviated. So it is easy to find out where the deviation is because of the process. But if you are firm with one concept and you keep practicing it, then the deviations don't matter. Because if you jump back into the action, it will be solved. So continuous practice and focused attitude towards the process is helpful. But if you have to identify the issue, then the process helps to know. If I am not peaceful, then I know something has gone off in my righteousness. But if I am right, but I fluctuate, that means I know my love is deviated. I'm not pumping in enough love. I'm not feeling it. So see, I can identify the issues based on my deviations if I need. But if you are only focused like Prahalada, like Meera, then nothing else is required. Devotion can surpass everything. So if you are devoted to your duty, if you are devoted towards your work, then everything else will automatically fall in place. So that is the beauty of values and practicing of values. So I hope this session was helpful. I hope this would, what I have learned, I've shared, and I hope for some, as Sister Lindavati is saying, that thanks for the refresher. Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure, because it's always, the more and more we contemplate on these topics and these thoughts, they reinforce us, they give us better, motivation to keep going. So my pleasure to share. And if you have any thoughts, any concern, any questions, suggestions, I again welcome you all to share it, to write to me. I'll be more than happy to look at it and share back with you. So thank you once again. Thank you for joining, and thank you for this lovely interaction. Thank you very much.